family. Glad to be back with you for another week. Um, Hopefully, yeah, everybody's been having a good week. Don't have a live reading today, but we'll do a little talking about this healing journey and some realizations, and so hopefully a couple of things resonate with you. I want to share a couple of things that I got over the past week. It was ironic because when you're yeah, I'm gonna share a couple of things. I waited to I'll change the camera view. We're going to I'm gonna share a couple of things that I received as gifts. We're gonna talk a little bit about a very good question that you need to ask yourself while you're on this healing journey. It's kind of a question that allow you to pause and do an assessment of where you are. Then we'll talk a little bit about the answers to that. This week I had an interesting challenge, and it was a triggering challenge. So we'll talk about those challenges that you face while you're on this journey, and we're going to talk about loss, and not in a physical sense of losing someone to loss of life, but some of the things that you loved in the past that you may have lost along the way. And I have one very particular thing that I lost along the way, and I talk about it. And we're still working on that. How do we want our love life to look? How do we want our rich life to look? And who do we have to be to get those things? And over several experiences, I realized something else that I want to add to my list. So today I got my dashiki on. It's funny because I pick my clothes. I just kind of stand in the closet for a little bit, and whatever my spirit says, wear. So today we're wearing a dashiki. I probably haven't worn this in probably like a year or so. Got this from my best friend while she was in Ghana. She brought this back for me, so I guess maybe my spirit needed to feel poured into a little bit, so I wore something that is an example of when I felt poured into. So, all right, family, we're gonna get this show started. So on this journey, sometimes you have questions on if you're doing the right thing, or if you're heading in the right direction, or any one of numerous amount of things. And I'm learning that when you have those questions, you do really get answers. But ironically, sometimes these answers come from the least expected places. So you have to have your awareness open and be in a place where you can receive to get this. So for me, what wound up happening, and it was funny because I was able to spend some time with some people from my tribe. Outside of the soul family, you'll have multiple tribes, but my other tribe is the tribe of people that I took Reiki class with. And I was able to kick it with one of them particular earlier this week. And it was funny because I remember in the Reiki class, the way she was just, she is so in touch with her emotions that a good thought will make her cry. And the way that she was so in touch with her emotions was overwhelming, to say the least. And it's ironic that over time, she's becoming one of the people who, for lack of better words, actually feel safe with. So, and it's funny because I've been a little flaky and just been out of space, but understandably so because I've always been, well, not always, but I've definitely been um straightforward and transparent. And I remember at the beginning of the Reiki class, they probably thought I hated women or I didn't like women, but I was just at a place in my life where being in feminine energy is not where I wanted to be. And that turned out to be a good experience for me. But I spent a little time with her earlier this week before, was it this week? No, it actually was Thursday, last Thursday, because I kicked it with her before Thursday night book club. And I noticed something when I got home. After being in her energy, just laughing and joking and being in her space, when I came home, I wasn't even hungry. I didn't even get hungry that day, period. So she invited me to kick it with another one of the people from our tribe and her husband. And when I went over there, it was an ironic space to be in because it was probably one of one time, especially during this healing process, that I felt most loved, most respected, most appreciated. And this word we'll probably use a lot tonight, but valued. And it's funny how these things were sown. So all I had to do in this situation was show up, and everything else was taken care of. And I also was given gifts that actually responded to something I needed. So, and I so want her, and she will. When she gets to the point to start selling her products, I so want her to come on the show and at least tell you all about it and how she got there. But she made me some. That is crazy because it's homemade soap. But yeah, it was funny because I told y'all I cut my hand. And I was thinking to myself, like, yo, I need some different kind of soap or something. And somehow it connected to her, and that's what she made me. And outside of that soap, she made this candle. And I love this candle so much. I don't even know if I'm going to burn it. So, one of the cool things about this candle is that it has, like, I don't know if you can see, the lighting is a little crazy, but it has crystals in there and flowers in there, and specifically an amethyst crystal, which I love because that's my birthstone. And we've been buying amethyst like crazy lately too. Between that black amethyst and that purple amethyst, and this one that sits on my desk. But I think this candle is so nice, I don't even want to burn it. But even having an amethyst stone, it just kind of spoke to my spirit. And lastly, I have been. It's this thing called Florida water. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but the first thing I can tell you, it is not water from Florida. It is usually a mix of ingredients and things like holy water or essential oils or a mix of sages. It's just various things. But I have been trying to get my hands on some for a minute, and I wanted some that was from a trusted source. And I attempted to make my own, so I asked a friend to pray and give me some holy water and all this other stuff, but that didn't help happen at this point yet. But soon as I asked her, could I have this, where I can get some Florida water? She was like, you don't need to get that. We can make that right now. And she asked what my intentions were to use the water. So I have, what is this? All is Well cleansing spray. And I'm so excited about it because I plan on definitely using it in some of my Reiki sessions And for me, it was just a moment where I was able to be there and I felt poured into. And like I said, appreciated and valued to the point that I don't even think I've talked to anybody since Saturday, maybe. I've just been to myself a little bit. So I take notes and get prepared for the Tuesday night show can be interesting because a lot of times I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about or what direction we're going to go into. I mean, I have some sort of idea. I know what direction we're going, but I wind up having to trust the experiences, and I just got to trust the experiences of the week and wind up developing a show around that. And so far, every week has given me something that we all can work on or taps into some part of my creativity where we have something to talk about. So, on Monday nights, I generally talk about how I have this men's club that I'm a part of. And I had the meeting yesterday, and we started with a very interesting question that I thought was a very valid question that I wanted to pose to you all and share my response to this question. So the question was, how are your relationships now that you're on this journey? And one of the fellas answered first, and he said a word that stuck with me. And it definitely defines how my relationships are now. So, one thing my relationships are now, we are addressing the idea of value. And it's funny because it's specifically, I have a new value for my time and my effort. And I'm learning that if you don't value your time and effort, and if you don't show people how to value your time and effort, people won't value your time and effort. And ironically, I feel like this journey probably started when I first started this Reiki thing. And friend that I've known since high school reached out to me and wanting to do a session or so forth. And it's funny because as I look back on this, another question evolved in my mind. And the question, I think, is more of a trigger than a question, but are some of these people using my healing as a way to get close to me? And this is the first example that I thought that. And it wasn't like, and I don't think in a malicious way. You know what I mean? Or they might not even be aware of it. But every time that we try to have a session or we were supposed to do something or something of that nature, oh my God, she'd always fall through or wouldn't call or anything. And it's funny because this was one of my first tests on drawing a boundary. So when I said something to her about being respectful of my time and effort, of course she was offended, and we haven't talked since then. But that's okay because I'm comfortable drawing boundaries. And now it's funny because how this value sits in my life, it really sits under the umbrella of self-love. And the funny thing about it is, the one thing that I've learned to value so much more right now is self-love. And that has been a battle for me in the sense that in creating this new self-love, in valuing myself, my time, my effort, it does put you, and we talked about it a little bit last week, in this space of loneliness. And being in this space of loneliness makes me have to pause and think about, as we discussed last week, some of the triggers that loneliness create. And that loneliness would create triggers that would make me accepting of behaviors and people and situations that I shouldn't, because it would strike up a sense of fear somewhere. And I ain't want to be alone. Being alone with my thoughts, being alone with those ideas. And it wasn't even the thoughts and the ideas, because I entertain myself. It really was just simply the trigger of being alone that would make me feel like I'm in a space of unloved, which is crazy. So that's one of the things that those gifts that I got was a reminder of, that even when you're alone, you're not alone. And someone does love you. And it was funny because all last week, too, randomly, I was getting several messages from friends saying that you are loved and appreciated and valued. So these people were setting up somewhat of a paradigm shift where I'd be able to recognize what these things look like, instead of just saying I feel them. Feeling them, wanting them, expecting them is one thing, but having a realistic perspective on what they look like and remaining open on how they may look different than what you know is tough. And in doing this value thing, I've taken this week, like I said, I felt full. And I think it was setting me up for a time that I was going to spend alone. And the wild thing about it, for the first time in a long time, after being charged up with those text messages, after being charged up with spending time with my tribe, after being charged up with receiving and being poured into from my tribe, for the first time in a long time, sitting in this space of loneliness, I'm very comfortable. And for the first time in a long time, it's not triggering, where I'd be accepting or even seeking out situations that were not necessarily good for me, because I wanted to alleviate that feeling of loneliness. And it's really funny how life is really about perspectives. And just that shift in the perspective makes my alone time a little easier. And it's ironic because I don't know where I lost that, but somewhere along the line, I lost it. And I used to do all types of stuff by myself, all types of stuff. I seen this TikTok video earlier, and it was a dude sitting out and eating by himself. And somebody was saying that men eating by themselves and women eating in a group. And women went in on how sad it was that the men was by themselves and they need to create support systems. And I'm thinking, it's okay to have lunch by yourself. And that was just like the break in the timeline, or the shift in perspective, that helped me to realize that being alone in your thoughts, or being alone with yourself, can be comforting, because it creates a space for me to, that word I just used, create Another aspect of how my relationships are going are, and we talked about it, is that we under new negotiations. So we are renegotiating contracts. And that is mainly because who I was, I no longer am. And like I said, some of the things that I would accept because we have a history, or because you were my friend, or like I told the fellas last night, because I would apply understanding, because I can understand your situation or where you're at. It would allow me to be accepting of things that should not be acceptable for me. What another person might accept, I can't speak for that, but should not be acceptable. And one of them is unreliable. I have people, or people that I've known for years, that are so unreliable that I would not look to them for anything. And it's funny because some of these people think they are reliable for the things that they have done. But when you look and you think and you assess, have they really? So, and this is difficult for some people because they're learning these new expectations of the new me. And something that's happening as well with my relationships are a reprioritization of the importance of these relationships in my life. So whether it be, as we talked about, some of the difficulties that I'm having in my family with my mother, I talked about how I found out one of my closest friends since I was 13 years old was stealing from me. It's just been an interesting journey. And with some of these relationships, although we have longevity, they no longer can sit at high levels in my life because they don't coincide with the new me. And the new me wants to make sure that he goes places and spend more time with the people and doing the things that make him feel valued, appreciated, and celebrated. And life gives me examples of this because I don't know these people. I haven't spent a ton of time with them. I don't have 15 years of relationships and trials and tribulations. All I really have is one shared experience and a clearer spirit that can allow me to judge the people and connect with people in a healthy space. The other thing my relationships are experiencing now is this new level of patience, right? So the interesting thing about this patience is it is more patience for myself, right? And this is interesting because that is something I had to do. I could be so impatient and so hard on myself. But with other people, I could be so understanding and so forgiving. And now it's kind of like a paradigm. It's been flipped, 180. Well, now I'm way more patient with myself. I understand that, like I told the fellas last night, in this new self, I am still an infant. It's been a hellified almost 1 year, but I'm less than 1 year into this new identity. So I'm still an infant. And with that, I have to be patient with myself to know that I'm still going to make mistakes. Sometimes that old self is going to get in the driver's seat and pick and make decisions. And I have to be in a space where I have patience for when that happens. And the word that we've used a lot, forgiveness for myself. And the other word we use a lot, the grace to understand that I may make that mistake again. But I'm proud because I'm no longer patient with others in a way that would allow me to be accepting of behaviors that are not conducive to my spiritual well being. And another space that my relationships are in is this space of challenge. And it's funny because as you move to your higher self, there will be things that you no longer want to deal with. People, places, energies, whatever. And when you start to live in that space, there still will be times you need to pause and assess to make sure that some of these stepping away from these energies, spaces, places, people is not avoidant behaviors. So one of the, like, for example, the thing that I talked to y'all about with my mother, I knew that that was going to be a difficult thing, but I still, against everything, that inner voice that already told me what it was going to be, against that, I still stepped up to that challenge to make sure that it wouldn't be a space where I was avoiding dealing with that interaction, especially because I knew what it would be. Then we talked about it a little bit in the sense that that challenge where I had to come to terms and find a space where I feel safe and comfortable in my alone time and not so anxious and not feeling like I need to do something. Set up a real good space and reconnecting with some of the things I used to do in my alone time makes alone time that much grander. And examples of that is that self love, like going out to eat or something I used to love, reading or play pool or watch a movie outside. All of those things would be examples of self love for myself. And dating has been an interesting challenge. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave that one until we get to the the thing I want to add to my love life. But also, I think I had a major challenge this week because in the process of feeling valued and being poured into, I had the opportunity to reconnect with someone I hadn't talked to. I can't even tell you the last time I talked to them. And it was a woman. And we were able to talk one time. And I am very thankful for that one conversation because it helped me to realize some things. One of the things that came up in that men's group was something someone said, and it was, you may not realize that there are still some hurt that lives in that space. And as much as I've done a lot of healing, there is still residual hurt that lives in my space called relationships. And some of them I'm unaware of because I'm so far removed from them that until I face them again, I don't realize that there was residual hurt. So with this one friend, I can't even say how long I've known her, but I've known her a long time. I'd say since high school. And it was a period of time that her, myself, and my homeboy, who I found out was stealing from me, it was kind of like the three amigos. Man, we skipped school all the time. As a matter of fact, I learned the art of skipping school with them. The art of skipping school is have a plan. Be out there like you're supposed to be out there. And we skip school and go race go-karts all the time. And I'll never forget, before my father passed, he needed to have a bone marrow transplant. And our relationship was tenuous at best. And he called me and he asked me would I come and check to see. And I immediately said yes. And I remember he was so shocked that I would say yes. And all I could say to him was, "You my father. I love you. All that other stuff is life. And life's going to happen." So when it came time to go see my pops, me, him, and her went. And she is probably the only woman who met my father when he was alive. And I think we got to a point where I realized I had done so much and been through so much with this woman. I probably loved her more than any woman I've loved before, which was interesting. And it's funny because some of this is stuff that I realized and I'm sharing with you now that I just realized after that last interaction. And I remember the day I got the nerve to tell her this. And I remember I will never forget what she said to me. And her response was she was not willing to risk the friendship for a relationship. And for me at that moment in time, it was I ain't gonna say the first, but it was one of many confusing ideas by what's said and what's done in practice. Because I was one of those people who firmly believe that people want to date, marry their best friend. So when I told someone who I considered my best friend that I loved them, it was confusing when she said that's not what she wanted. And I understood, I accepted, and I respected. And I learned a valuable lesson. And this is if the man or if it's the woman. But if you find yourself in a situation like that and you don't want to risk the friendship for a relationship, Be careful. Because what I learned was after that moment, the relationship would never be the same again. Because what you'll be asking the other person is to live in somewhat a got milk situation. I'm eating all these cookies and I ain't got no milk to wash it down. So I'm having this conversation and something was said that was triggering, or matter of fact, should have been triggering. She was talking to me about just her life, cool. And one thing she said that sticks in my mind, where in one of her past relationships, she dated a dude that she knew for a long time. I think since 7th grade or something. And that's when that trigger went off. Because when I was that dude, I didn't get that opportunity. But what made that moment even better for me was how fast I moved on from that idea and that thought. Because now I'm functioning in my new self. And in my new self, who cares? Does it align with who I'm trying to be? Nope. So I don't care. But the ironic thing about this is this also gave me the opportunity to exercise my boundaries and live as my new self. Because I remember there was a time that my friends or people I love can almost do anything to me. And I would welcome them back with open arms and be understanding and forgiving because I truly believed in unconditional love, which is interesting. Foreign concept. And I remember before this last time, her and I connected probably a couple of years ago. And it was just through messaging. And I sent that last message. And I ain't hear from her again for years. And randomly I get that message. And then she'll just ignore me. And every time she'd reach out, I'd welcome her with open arms. But again, I'm functioning in my new self. So now I welcomed her with open arms. And you know how we talked about that value of time? We scheduled something. We talked about something. And that drop off and ignore began again. But unfortunately, I'm not my old self. Where that behavior used to be acceptable, it no longer is. Because I value my time and my effort. And if no one else does, I still will. And if I don't, how can someone else? So if I make myself available to you, if I make an effort to see you, and that is not reciprocated, or it is not treated like it's valued or appreciated, the new me easily removes itself. And in the sense that if you don't value and appreciate the access that you have, you no longer have access. And that's one of the renegotiations of my new friendships. under the new who I am. You can't keep giving people. 'Cause I used to think that allowing that would people would see value and respect in that, but they don't. They don't learn value and respect. They only learn that you will always accept them back, regardless of how much hurt, frustration, anger, blah, 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 whatever emotions may be attached to the event, no matter how much what they did to you hurt or whatever emotion it may have caused. They'll just see you as a person who will welcome them back no matter what and take that for granted. Another space that relationships are in on this healing is for me to recognize when to stop and move on. That has been one of my issues for a long time, especially when it came to places I was supposed to be. It's easy when it comes to a place where you know you didn't have any business being. You know, like, I ain't had no business being there. So the idea of stopping and moving on is easy. But when you're supposed to be there, recognizing when to leave can be very difficult, whether it be in relationships or career. I have suffered in not understanding that. And when I help people through these spiritual journeys, or when I took my own spiritual journey, one of the challenges of that journey is learning when to move on, no matter how it may feel, no matter why you may want to stay. Understanding that if you do overstay your welcome, it will change dramatically. And for me, recognizing when to stop and move on is a new challenge that I'm getting more comfortable with the skill of doing that. And it really starts with that value for yourself, that self-love for yourself, and drawing boundaries that align with who you are, right? And then tie into that was this thing of lessons and blessings. It came up in the men's meeting. It came up last week in the show. This came up before, and I spoke on it before. I'll never forget that this woman was trying to give me something. And I was like, I'm good. And she was like, listen, don't block my blessings because you don't know how to receive. Fraction timeline, changed my perspective. So I've been doing my best to not block other people's blessings. And then I also do my best to be a blessing in other people's lives. Now, in doing my best to be a blessing, sometimes, not even sometimes, a lot of times, I was supposed to also, or more importantly, be a lesson. And as much as I stopped blocking people's blessings by not being able to receive, I struggled by blocking people's lessons, especially with the ones that I love. I don't want them to make the mistakes. I don't want them to have to learn the tough lessons that maybe I have learned or heard about that gave me 6 new gray strands of hair. I laugh at that. I love it though. And a space that I'm becoming more comfortable in is my role as lessons. So for everybody, they don't keep to have you as the blessing in their life forever. One thing I took from my father at his funeral was something that they said, and it's wild because he never said it to me, but I took it as one of his sayings, and it's the truth. There are several types of people. The tree people. He said, some people in your life are like leaves on a tree. They'll be there, but when the wind comes through, they blow change of the seasons, they fall off, they disappear. Then you have those people in your life that are like branches. They're a lot more sturdier. They'll hang on for a little longer. But when a wind or a storm strong enough comes through, it'll blow the branches off. And then you have those people who are like the roots of a tree. And no matter how strong a storm comes, the storm can tip the tree over and the roots will still be there. So in learning to be people's lessons, sometimes you remember the leaves need to be a part of the tree to survive. The branch need to be a part of the tree to survive. And if these things separate, they need to learn their lessons. So the last thing I want to talk about is something that's interesting. It was a moment. So in this healing journey, I think one of the things that I lost that was rather important to me is my love of writing. And it's funny because even if you've been on this show, I remember, and I'm assuming that the woman was African. But when we had that person from Twitch and they told me that I need to write about love, I was like, I'm not writing about love. I need to have a better ending to this story, right? But there's this idea of writing. Everybody, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. You need to write a book. You need to write something. No, I don't like writing books. I used to always say I don't like writing. And it's funny because when I think back on myself, I used to love writing. I used to love writing poems and short stories. I mean, to the point that I still love letters and stuff like that. I got letters. If you ever wrote me a letter, I probably still have it. I had a friend from college. I'm going to say her name, Selena. We used to sit in that biology class and write letters all the time. And I probably still got them letters. College, high school, all of them. I shared a letter with a friend today that they gave me the day after my pops died. They were with me the day I found out my father died. And they left me a nice little letter. So I've always appreciated the value of word. And it's funny because I was looking through some stuff. I was looking for a short story that I wrote when I was in graduate program. And I love that short story. I called it A Walk with My Pet Monkey. And it was really about the monkey on your back. And that's air quotes. But in this context, the monkey on your back was just being black. Because when I got to Milwaukee, I was arrested within less than 24 hours. Then it was just crazy experience. And it was just me writing about my experience walking around with this monkey on my back that I can't ever get down. So I wanted to read that to y'all, but I wound up finding this journal. Now, this journal is funny because this is one of the better ideas I ever got for a relationship. And it's funny because I think I told y'all the story. I don't think I told y'all the story. I will tell y'all the story before I read the last thing I wrote. And I know my graduate school program killed reading in me. I read so much, I was like, I don't even want to read no more. But I didn't know what killed writing because graduate school writing ain't that bad unless you get to the capstone project or thesis. And I was a fool that chose the thesis. And yeah, it was wild. But something that was interesting that I realized Because I know within the last 10 years, I tell anybody I don't write ain't my thing. I can write, but that's not it. Just talk to me or I'm in person. But I was so bad at writing, I promise you that if I could holler at women with just writing them love letters, I'd be killing the game. When I was a peewee, I used to write so many little love letters and poems and all types of wild stuff. Oh my God, that I got out of it. And it's funny because this journal was supposed to serve as a journal. This is the idea for me and my then girlfriend, where we'd write notes and messages back to each other, even have some of those difficult conversations that may be triggering and cause us to be upset. If we had them out loud, we'd write them down and give each person the opportunity to process, take a little time. You had to keep the journal for a couple of days when you were going to write into it. But on March 28th, 2010, Jesus Christ, I said, I guess I'm excited about the journal. I can tell now it will be fun. And I will use it just to speak because I'm a little better with the written word. So at least just 10 years ago, I used to think I was a great writer. And I wonder where I lost it. And it's funny because you know how we talked about some of those residual pains. One of the reasons I shared that story about my friend was because I think that was one of the examples of the residual pain. So us being able to have a conversation allowed me to recognize there may be some residual pain and move beyond. But I never knew that my lack of writing was based on residual pain as well. And I didn't realize it until I read the last thing I ever wrote that was my feelings. After this, anything I write is technical writing, or because emails is work related, stuff like that. It's just never really about my feelings or any. The last creative. I was in my master's program, so this is the last time I did creative writing. This is the last time I wrote, and it was funny because I remember the last time I probably saw this girl. She chased me. And I laugh at the story because it ain't funny though. But I remember she ain't live in Milwaukee. She came to Milwaukee to see me. And I didn't know she was coming. So I just get a call and she tell me she's at BP. And she needs to know how to get to where I am. So I'm like, Milwaukee got a bunch of BPs. So which BP you at? I don't know. What do you see around you? I don't know. It's funny because she was probably the first example of where I run into this in dating. So I think there's this mindset that a lot of women have that they are going to show a man how to be a man. And in the process of doing that, they don't even show up authentically in the dating experience. So like I talked to this girl not too long ago. Well, as a matter of fact, I let her last year before I even got a girlfriend. And communicating with her was cool. We probably talked on the phone a little bit. And it's funny because we reconnected not too long ago. And I told her that she was mysterious and elusive. And her response was, no, I'm not. No, yes, you are. I'm not saying that for a reason. So it wasn't to get clarity. It wasn't like, what would make you think that? Because I would have told her exactly why I thought she was mysterious and elusive. And the funny thing about it was, I'm checking to see if I'm reading wrong. Because the first time I tried to holler at her, this is exactly why I stopped talking to her and got a girlfriend instead, somebody who wasn't mysterious and elusive. So This time we reconnect. I tell her, um, I'm gonna take you out on Friday. Because the first time we connected, we talked for weeks and we couldn't even get to a date because we didn't talk enough where I could figure out if I liked her enough to actually spend money on her. So this time I'm like, since I'm already familiar, you being a little patient and understanding, let's go out Friday. And she had to do some things with her child. And I was like, all right, well, let me know what you figure out that, and I can give you make some plans, some details. Man, needless to say, I ain't hear from her no more. Anytime I talk to this woman, I have to contact her. Anytime she wasn't even gonna tell me that she was about to stand me up for the date if I didn't contact her on Friday, which I already knew she was going to because she never did her part in the first part. And the reason why I'm telling you the story is because in our conversation, she said she didn't want any lazy pursuit. But you're so elusive that anyone who would actively pursue you, it becomes difficult. So I think some of that was her trying to teach me how to treat her. And this girl I dated who chased me, she was one of those people. So she felt a man should be able to find his woman when she is lost. So she would be no help when she was lost. And I would just have to stick my thumb in the air and find her, or sniff her out in the air or something like that. But I'll never forget, came to Milwaukee, didn't know what she was, hung up on me. And I was like, okay. And then called me about 30 minutes later and said, I'm in the parking lot across the street from where you live. So I go out there to talk to her. She said, can we talk? I go out there to talk to her. It's a funny story to me. It's funny because the Russian kid. So I go out there to talk to her and she started talking. And as she's talking, she's hearing herself and she's getting angry. And I'm literally just standing there. She's getting angry. She gets so mad. She jumps in the car and slams the door. So I walk off. And when I get to the curb, I hear this little sound. And I'm looking around like, what is that? And she grabbed my arm. It was her running. And I hadn't been chased in so long. I ain't know what it sound like. And she was like, come back to the car. We're going to try again. I'll keep calm and we're going to talk. So I'm going to say my part and then you say your part. And then I'm going to say my part. And it's going to go like that. Okay. And I was like, okay. And she got to talking again. And she got so upset. And this is needless. And I'm such a good guy. Because I'm out here to give her money to be able to get back home or whatever she wanted to do. And she jumps in the car and slams her door again. So I walk off. But this time when I heard that, I knew what it was. And I timed it perfectly and I ran across the street where she couldn't chase me. And Milwaukee, it was like a 4-lane street. And it was funny because I kept running and I ran past this Russian kid from my class who was outside smoking a cigarette. And you know how you just see somebody. That's how he watched me. And the funny part of the story is the next day he saw me in class. He was like, hey, I seen you run. Is everything okay? You need the help? I'm like, man, listen, I don't need help. It was just a woman. I'm okay. But anyway, that was probably the last time I saw her. And this was a woman that I thought I was going to marry. It was funny. And the last thing I wrote about my feelings and where I broke that disconnect between my love of writing was with her. So I'm glad I opened up this journal and it allowed me to see where the fracture in my timeline was for my love for writing. And now I can push that to the left, heal from that, and get back into something that I love, and specifically was writing poetry. The last thing I wrote was on 5/10/2010, which is crazy. I'm beyond pissed at myself. I can't believe I allowed myself to be in love. Once again, love has used me and tossed me to the side. I need to go home. And it was funny. I didn't go home. And I did date again. But I left my love for writing in this journal. And I never wrote again. But once I realized that, I was inspired because I started paying attention because something else, one of my tribe sent me this link to this guy who's doing a live poetry reading. I appreciate you stopping through. I see you on there. Another Strength and Brotherhood. I appreciate you as always. And I'll see you Monday. So she used to sent me this thing about this guy who's reading some of his poetry. And I was like, wow, I used to love poetry. And last night in the men's group, someone read something that was similar to a poem. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to wrap up with that. I want to share it with you all because it inspired me to start writing again. And I'm not ready to share what I wrote, but I'll give you some idea. It is under this idea of release, which is perfect for healing, but also it's a 2-part. So it's going to be I release and I embrace. But one of the brothers read something to us in the men's group that I want to share with y'all. And I think this is how we'll wrap the show up. And it was about releasing. And it's a little long, but stay with me. But and I think I don't want to assume where I got this from. But I can tell you not where I got this from. I know where I got this from the brotherhood. But I don't know where he got this from. But I can 100% say wherever he got this from, it was written in love and with good intentions. Enough where he thought enough of his brethren to share it with us. And I think enough of the soul family to share it with you. So I release and decree. I release all remaining resistance. I release all fear still stuck in my body, my cells, my blood and bones. I release all unforgiveness. I release all resentment. I release all guilt, all shame, all blame. I release all victim energy. I release all persecutor energies, all judgment, all criticism. I release all preconceived ideas. I release all jealousy, all hate, all anger, all grief, pain, and suffering. I release all frustrations. I release all need to control. I release those that want to control me, all manipulation. I release spite, all feelings of I'm not good enough or better than any other. I'm releasing all remaining implants, devices, entities, attachments, cords, ties, vows, pacts, contracts, agreements, all and everything that binds me to the old, all that doesn't serve my higher good any longer. I release all remaining feelings of my separation from self, others, my higher self, soul, oversoul, monad, and from the source. I release all remaining existence to change. I release all suppression. I release all my arrogance. I release negative ego. I release my lower nature. I release all blocks, barriers, and chains that prevent me from moving forward. I release all blocks, all that blocks me from loving myself and others more deeply and receiving love into my life. I release all outdated thinking, all belief systems, templates, programs, behaviorals, and thought patterns that keep me experiencing old timelines and experiences. I overwrite and override all lesser DNA, all lesser codes, and strands within every one of my cells, atoms, atomic and subatomic particles, and waves and all the spaces in between, down to the mitochondria, across all time and space, all dimension, all realities, and all universes. I release all and everyone that is not in alignment with my highest good and original divine true human source blueprint. I release all feelings of hopelessness, despair, depression, low self-worth, and heaviness. I release all self-denial, all delusions, all illusions, all false hopes. I release all blocks around my heart and my mind. I release all densities, all distortions, all mind control, all and everything trying to keep me down and hold me back. I'm releasing all interferences. I'm removing all and everything that is standing in my way from becoming my highest version of myself. I'm releasing all lower thought forms trying to discourage me and hold me back. I release all that is not love, not compassion, not understanding, not forgiveness, not oneness. I'm releasing all feelings of doubt, disbelief, and confusion. I release every thought, feeling, and belief that I am not good enough or strong enough to make it as I am. I release all feelings and thoughts making me believe that I'm not worthy of happy, peaceful, fulfilled, joyful, balanced, abundant, and love-filled life. I release all programming that tells me I cannot have it all. I release all worries, all tension, all anxiety. I release my old self, my lower self, all of me, which I've come to love and accept and welcome home. I can now let go of all of that is no longer in alignment, so I can integrate all of me, so I can release all that I am not, to make peace for my true self to emerge once again, my inner Christ, my true divine human, my source self, resurrected and reborn. Like the phoenix from the ashes, I rise like never before. As a new dawn breaks, I have arrived home. At last, I have arrived as the true, authentic me. At home in my heart, pure source love, divine love, as one. Nothing else is required. I am source. I am sovereign. I am free. And that was extremely inspirational to me. So between the invitation to watch the poetry, between hearing words so powerful, it sparked my creative thing and allowed me to get my love for writing back. So I look forward to reading some of the short stories and all those other things that I plan on writing with you, So we're over the hour a little bit, so we're going to wrap it up. I appreciate everyone for their time. I appreciate you stopping by, and hope to see you Thursday as we continue to read Before I Let Go. And I think we're going to read The Alchemist next. I know we're reading The Alchemist next. And then I think I want to read The Aquarian Gospels of Jesus the Christ. That's funny. So I appreciate your time. I thank you so, family. Remember, you are worthy, you are valued, you are appreciated, and more importantly, you are loved. Thanks, family. See you